It was quiet. Too quiet for a courtroom. This full, no whispering, no fidgeting, no pen tapping or heel clicking. Only the hang of one name suspended in the air like a weighty gavel. Christine Brown. She stood with her fingers locked together, firm and unmoving, like a woman who'd waited decades, no decades, for this moment. Her gaze didn't roam. It was planted dead center. On him. Kody sat across the aisle, shoulders rigid, jaw tight, arms folded so tightly, he resembled a man ready to crack open under his own defense. But nobody was defending him today. This wasn't a court of law. This was a court of consequence. And Christine was the one withholding the truth like a sword behind her teeth. No attorneys, no jury, just the truth, the deceit, and the past between them, reverberating against the walls of the courtroom. Christine stood before a big wooden board, upon which were tacked the pictures, family photos, TLC production photos, text screenshots, fuzzy photos of Kody at locations he said he never was. Each one, a small fragment of deception. Each one louder than any witness. At times you don't require a verdict. You simply require the courage to speak. Christine moved forward. One heel click, and the whole room leaned forward. I gave you 25 years, she started. Not for money, not for fame. I gave them because I believed in something greater than myself. Her voice did not tremble. It didn't need to. Kody's eyes fluttered. He didn't reply. He couldn't. Christine leaned back and pulled down one of the photographs. It was of her, Kody and Robyn, smiling from when Robyn had originally come into the family. Do you recall this day? She said. Because I do. Kody blinked. You said she was a blessing. You told me that she'd restore the family structure. You said she was God's solution to our imbalance. Christine laughed once, bitter and curt. But what she regained was your ego. Gasps coursed through the gallery. Kody shifted in his seat, but still, silence. Do you have any idea what betrayal is, Kody? She went on. It's not cheating. It's not lying. It's seeing someone get hurt and not caring. She took a step closer, holding up a handwritten note, well known to anyone who'd seen it online. Garrison's letter. You shunned our children when they needed you most. You valued the noose above the faithful. And the most heartbreaking of all, you made yourself believe you were in the right. The judge didn't interrupt. The room didn't budge. Even the air was too dense to breathe. This wasn't a confrontation. This was an unburial. Each name separately, Christine started reciting. Not only her children, not only the other wives, but herself. Christine, who stood alone in hospital waiting rooms. Christine, who passed Christmas with clock watching rather than gift opening. Christine, who pleaded for closeness as he pursued dominance. You called my departure betrayal, she declared, voice escalating now. But you departed before I did. You simply did it with a grin. Kody at last opened his lips, but the judge held up a hand. Not yet, Mr. Brown. Christine's expression didn't change. She didn't need permission. She already had the floor, and the story. And then it came, the twist. Because Christine didn't just want answers. She wanted something else, something no one expected. She turned to the judge and said, Your Honor, I'm submitting a final exhibit. From under the table, she pulled a small folder. Inside it was a copy of the original family covenant they had all signed years ago. But this draft had been edited, highlighted, rewritten. Christine turned to a page labeled Family Values and Accountability. This is what we all consented to, she stated, her voice now trembling, not with fear, but with memory. That no one would be elevated. That no one voice would ring out above the rest. That we'd each honor the entirety. She held the document out to Kody. You broke this. Over and over. Not by accident, but by design. Kody stared at it like it was a mirror he didn't want to face. Christine placed it down. I don't want revenge, she said, finally softly. Not really. She took one step closer. What I want is truth. I want my children to know their mother didn't walk away for nothing. I want to show every woman watching this that silence isn't strength, that loyalty has a limit. I want freedom, not from you, but from the lie I lived inside for too long. And with that, Christine stepped back. The courtroom didn't explode. It didn't clap. It breathed, it exhaled. Because all the people in that room, no matter what they said, had seen something one rarely sees. A woman walking out of the wreckages, doesn't look back. Christine spun and strode out of the center of the courtroom, her stilettos clicking punctuation marks at the end of each truth she'd just spoken. Kody hadn't budged yet. Not a twitch, not a blink. He was less a man accused, and more like one coming apart in slow motion. The judge was immobile behind the bench, mouth shut, as if considering Christine's words on an imaginary scale only time could ever tip. But Christine didn't wait to be seated. She'd said what she'd come to say. And now, it was Kody's turn. The judge finally leaned forward, voice low and weighty. "Mr. Brown, you may respond." Kody stood. But he didn't stand with strength. He stood like the wind had been knocked from him. For once the fire wasn't present. No bluster, no charm, no finger pointing. Just a man with an empty chest, and too many stories of the truth to recall which one was true. He opened his mouth. He began, and then hesitated. Christine did not blink. She did not glance away. He attempted again. "I did not intend for this to have happened like this." Some people shifted uncomfortably in the gallery. The tension came back like a crack in the wall expanding. "I never meant to harm you," he went on. "Any of you." Christine lifted an eyebrow. Not one of surprise, but of something chillier, recognition, because she had heard those exact words before. In kitchens, in cars, in 2 a.m. phone calls, when he remembered he'd forgotten a birthday, or a moment. He always claimed not to mean to. But what she'd learned with time was that not meaning something didn't absolve doing nothing. Intent without change is just manipulation, dressed in good manners. Kody caught his breath. "I thought I was creating something. I thought it would last. I really believed that." His tone was gentler now, almost childish. "But each time something broke, I tried to repair it by holding on tighter, by controlling more. And I thought if everyone just obeyed, we'd be okay." He was staring at her now. "But you never obeyed. And I held that against you." Christine nodded slowly. There it was. The truth, not the kind that would hold up in court. The kind that was buried. The emotional sort. "You hated that I had a brain," she said. "You hated that I didn't require you to breathe." Kody did not disagree. He sat back down, deflated. The judge leaned back in his chair. And for an instant, things actually seemed to calm down. Like maybe this was the point where they'd both go away, exhausted but truthful. But Christine stood up again. The room stilled. "I'm not finished." Even the judge leaned his head to one side. Christine walked to the center once more. "Because there's something no one's talking about," she said. "Not on the show. Not online. Not even in this courtroom." She pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "This contains footage you've never seen. Conversations Kody forgot were recorded. Texts, voicemails, patterns." The bailiff approached, taking the drive to the screen technician in the back. A monitor lit up on the wall. The room dimmed slightly. And what happened wasn't violent. It wasn't angry. It was worse. It was casual cruelty. Cuts of Kody downplaying Janelle's worries, informing Meri that her loyalty no longer mattered. Giphonic at Robyn over how Christine gets too emotional to be reasoned with. Slowly the clips appeared like nails in a coffin, constructed out of denial. Kody's face went white. Christine didn't glance at him. She stared ahead. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about exposure. She was showing the world what emotional neglect looks like when it's dressed in patience and prayer. You don't have to scream to destroy someone. Sometimes silence is the sharpest weapon. The final clip played. Kody alone, speaking into a camera, saying Christine leaving was the best thing that ever happened. "I'm finally free from her drama." The room exhaled in discomfort. Christine smiled gently. Not bitter. Not smug. Liberated. She flipped off the screen and turned back to the center. "I'm not displaying this to embarrass you, Kody. I'm displaying it because for all these years you led everybody to believe that the pain was equal." She stopped. "But it wasn't. You privileged. You privileged silence. You privileged giving up. And we remained." The judge broke her silence. "Mrs. Brown, what do you seek from this court?" She turned slowly. "Nothing tangible," she replied. "Not apologies. Not money. Just a public acknowledgement that I wasn't the one who destroyed this family. That leaving wasn't betrayal. It was survival. And I want on record. I kept my soul." The courtroom returned to silence. But it was the kind of silence that is like peace. Even Kody hunched forward in his chair. did not object. Christine took her seat. No applause, no shouting, no loud explosion. Just a crowded room of people finally witnessing what had been in front of their faces the whole time. And way at the back, unseen by everyone else, someone else stepped into the courtroom. Someone with a little folder. A state woman. The door to the courtroom whispered shut behind her. She had papers, and Christine wasn't finished yet. The woman who walked into the courtroom had no smile, no camera entourage behind her, no clipboards, no fanfare, just a thin navy folder, clutched tightly against her side and eyes that swept the room as if she already knew what kind of fire she was stepping into. Christine shifted slightly in her seat. She knew the logo on the folder, Utah Department of Family Affairs. Kody did too. His shoulders coiled instantly. The judge saw her standing there. "You are Meri Dalton, Family Law Oversight Division. I'm representing a recently filed state motion. It's directly relevant to this case," she stated matter-of-factly, advancing. Christine's mouth opened a fraction. She hadn't requested this, but somehow, it had ended up here. Meri presented the folder to the judge. "New facts have come to light. Enough to challenge the legal framework under which Mr. Brown made family decisions within his plural marriage, specifically those related to financial segregation and emotional abandonment." Kody moved forward, his eyes narrowing. "This wasn't part of the hearing," he grumbled. "No," Christine said softly, "but it should have been years ago. When silence is shattered, truth doesn't just reverberate, it compounds." The judge combed through the folder, his brow creased at several highlighted passages. "We have documented testimony from Janelle and Meri, who both have witnessed coercive decision-making and financial dishonesty. There is an area of concern regarding Robyn's participation in the handling of communal resources under Kody's sole discretion." Christine said nothing. Nothing visible, at any rate, but inside, she shifted. She had not planned this, but the truth had gone to someone else. Kody leaned back, sneering. "This is crazy. We were a family, not a business. There are no legal agreements." Meri interrupted him. "You are right, except when your decisions impacted legal guardianship, home ownership, and the trust entered into by you and Robyn's names for assets shared among all wives." The gallery grumbled. Even the judge flinched at that. Kody faced Christine. "You planned this." She looked him straight in the eye. "No, but the penalties do not concern timing. They merely arrive when you least expect them." Meri addressed the judge. "We're not requesting a ruling today, only acceptance of likely cause. Further examination will decide if formal legal proceedings should be initiated." Kody rose now, his voice mounting. "This is a hit job. They're just bitter, all of them." The judge brought down the gavel once. "Mr. Brown, sit down." Christine didn't blink. She sat peacefully, at the center of a storm that had long discovered its center. She continued talking. "You lied to us and said we were safe. You said we were protected, even when we weren't lawfully married. But you dictated everything, where we resided, who slept in which house, which holidays were important." She faced Meri. "You're not here to erase the past. I understand that. But if this inquiry can prevent another woman from relinquishing her power in the interest of spiritual harmony, then bring it. Closure isn't always an apology. It's a light on the pattern." Kody surveyed the room as if he was experiencing it for the first time. He wasn't the head of anything in this room. Not the courtroom. Not the family. Not even his own narrative. The judge scanned the folder once more, his finger drumming slowly on one tab. "There's enough here," he finally spoke. "We will present this motion to the state board. Let the record show that." Christine gasped sharply, not out of victory, but relief. Not all battles are fought in war. Some are finished off in a gentle paper trail that at last leads to the truth. Kody rubbed his face with his hand. It was the first time he appeared, older, not weary, but empty inside, as if all of the tales he once spun had come unraveled like dust. Meri took a step back, her mission accomplished, for the time being, and Christine stood once more. One final time. "There's something else," she said. "Not legal, not official, just real." She reached into her coat pocket and took out a small item, setting it down on the table before Kody. It was a music box, aged, scratched, almost forgotten, one of the few things they had all experienced in the early days, a small tune they played for their children, when the electricity had failed, and there was only candlelight and each other. Kody gazed at it as if it were a specter. You remember this? Christine asked. He shook his head slowly. You gave it to me, she said. When we purchased the land in Flagstaff, you said, we'll construct something lovely again. She stopped. But you quit construct. You just kept on taking. And I kept on hoping. She swallowed hard. And this box, I kept it, because I had hoped there was still music in you. The room did not shift. Christine turned, her eyes shining but unyielding. But now I know. I was playing it by myself. She walked away. Not toward the door. Not toward the gallery. But to her children who were now coming in from the back of the courtroom. Aspen, Mike Kelty, Isabel, Peyton, truly, their eyes full, their arms open. Christine reached them with a grace that looked nothing like defeat. She didn't just win the moment. She reclaimed her story. And behind her, Kody sat frozen, the music box still ticking, one slow, broken note at a time. Kody said nothing. Not when Christine walked out of the courtroom. Not when their kids hugged her. Not even when the music box, ancient and discordant, clicked once and fell silent. He remained still, as if time had stopped just for him, as if he didn't get up, perhaps none of it had actually occurred. But it had, and everyone knew that. The judge gave him a glance, then to the now half-empty gallery. The tide had shifted. What began as an altercation had become something Kody never expected. Public scrutiny, legal repercussion, emotional abandonment. The courtroom doors groaned open once more, and this time it was Robyn. Her step was slow, cautious. Her gaze swept the room like a war zone, not knowing where the next emotional minefield would be. She sat behind Kody, not next to him. A quiet gesture, but Christine would have caught it. So did the rest of them. Kody didn't glance back, and Robyn didn't lean forward to talk. She simply sat, quiet, for the first time, not his echo. When the last faithful voice becomes still, even power is punishment. The judge glanced at the docket. We have a chance to have closing remarks before recess. Mr. Brown, if you want to react to the state's motion or Mrs. Brown's testimony, now is your chance. Slowly Kody got up. He was no longer combative, but not humble either. He was worse than that. Exposed and still holding on to who he used to be. I never believed it would end like this, he whispered. I thought I was doing the right thing, trying to lead, trying to guard a vision. He gazed out at the gallery, now thinner than when the day had begun. No one warns you what happens when the people you're trying to lead no longer believe in you. He looked back, at last, at Robyn, but she didn't look at him, and that was when it struck him. He had lost her too, not in name, not in marriage, but in loyalty, the kind that doesn't survive silence. Kody gripped the table. I tried to hold this family together, he said. Louder now. I carried everything, all the responsibility, all the judgment. And yes, I made mistakes. A flicker of old Kody rose up, combative, defensive. But they weren't saints either. They walked away, one by one, and I was left to pick up the pieces. No response, not from the judge, not from Robyn, and certainly not from Christine, who had already started a new life. Kody's voice cracked. I didn't betray them. I sacrificed for them. And then, at last, Robyn spoke. 2 words, soft, devastating. You didn't. Kody slowly turned. What? Robyn stared straight ahead. Not at him. You didn't sacrifice. You controlled. And you called it leadership. Sometimes the most silent sentence holds the greatest consequence. The room was ice cold. The gallery stopped breathing. Even the judge leaned forward ever so slightly. Robyn wasn't yelling. She wasn't crying. But her face, normally soft and loyal, had grown hard. I saw you dismiss them. I saw you shut Meri out, shut Janelle up, and guilt Christine, until she couldn't get a breath. She at last turned to glance at him. And I let you, because I believed love meant to agree. But I was mistaken. Kody's face grew white. He opened his mouth, but words wouldn't come. Robyn rose slowly, her hands shaking just enough to betray her inner turmoil. I came today thinking I was going to stand behind you, that perhaps the others had misrepresented things. But when I heard Christine testify, I saw the truth. She moved away from her bench, and towards the center of the room. And for the first time, Robyn wasn't an echo of Kody. She was a shadow of Christine. She faced the judge. I need to make a statement on the record. He nodded deliberately. I facilitated it, she said. All of it. I benefited from it. And I am sorry. The judge jotted down notes. Robyn went on. If there's an investigation or inquiry, I want to be involved, wholeheartedly, not as a wife, but as a witness. Kody finally broke his silence. You're betraying me. Robyn's lips parted slightly. I'm waking up. And just like that, the only support Kody had left, his final emotional crutch had walked out from under him. Even the strongest walls collapse. When the last brick decides it no longer belongs, the judge closed the folder before him and cleared his throat. I believe we've heard enough for today. But no one moved. Everyone felt it. The strange stillness that follows a spiritual death. Christine had walked in for justice, but what she got was transformation. Not even for herself, but for everyone who was still holding on to the delusion that Kody's version of events was the only one that counted. The bailiff declared recess. The courtroom started to empty out. But Kody didn't budge. He alone stood in the courtroom, not as a husband, not as a father, not even as a man of faith, just a man, surrounded by all that he created, and all that he destroyed. The judge slipped away quietly. Maria Dalton shut her folder. Robyn stormed out without a glance back. And in the corner, and still left forgotten on the desk, the old music box remained unopened, quiet, unmoving, just like the legacy he believed he had in command. Outside the courtroom, the sky was beginning to turn. Clouds clung low over Flagstaff, throwing a gray wash over the courthouse steps. As reporters gathered, cameras poised, waiting for action, waiting for a quote, waiting for someone to blink first. Within, Christine had already passed beyond the drama. She wasn't merely walking away. She was walking towards something, something of her creation. As she walked through the double doors, her children accompanied her, not in fear, not in panic, but as a shield of common history. Some reporters hailed her name. She didn't blink, but she did pause, and she turned. Christine, one of them said softly, was today revenge? She smiled, sad, perhaps, but also keen. No, today was about sharing the part of the story that nobody else had the guts to speak aloud. She didn't give them more, just that, and it was enough. Because for the first time, Christine Brown wasn't the footnote to Kody's leadership. She was the headline. The most dangerous kind of woman is the one who realizes her power after surviving yours. Back inside the courthouse, Robyn stayed in the hallway, alone, not by force, by choice. She gazed at the wall in front of her, a painting of a balanced scale. Justice, judgment, truth, the things that they always insisted their family believed in. But she now saw, they never did. She took out her phone, paused, then wrote something slowly, intentionally. An email, to a producer. Subject line, request to step away from filming. She looked at it for a long time before hitting send. This wasn't a publicity stunt. It wasn't an attention seek. It was sorrow. Plain, awkward sorrow. For a part of herself she didn't want to play anymore. For years Robyn had been Kody's closest voice, even when it made her question herself. But today, she'd seen that voice turn into, and what looked back wasn't pretty. She removed his number from her phone and walked away. Christine, on the other hand, wasn't going home anytime soon. She had somewhere to. Later that night, a local women's center was hosting a quiet gathering, private. No cameras, no headlines, just survivors. Some had escaped religious family, some had escaped abusive partner, some had escaped narratives they were told they had no power to leave behind. Christine entered that space, not as a celebrity, not as a reality TV personality, but as a woman who finally realized why she'd buried her pain so deep. Because she'd learned to keep it dressed up as loyalty. Betrayal isn't always breaking a vow. It's staying loyal to someone who's breaking. She said nothing at first. She listened to women who had never been on film, who had no book contracts, no television shows, just truth. And in their voices, she heard her own. When it was her turn to speak, she made it simple. My name is Christine, and I left. The room didn't gasp. It nodded. One woman reached out across the table and put her hand on hers. We're proud of you, she told him. Not because you left Kody, but because you didn't leave yourself behind this time. Tears welled up in Christine's eyes, not tears of sadness, of finally being understood, of finally feeling like she belonged someplace that wasn't shrouded in performance. In the courtroom, Kody sat by himself in the hallway, hours after everyone had departed. No cameras, no family, only silence. He carried the music box in his hand. Now, he'd taken it when he left, perhaps out of guilt, perhaps because he needed something, anything that still tied him to what used to be. He opened it. It didn't work. The gears were jammed. The silence wasn't symbolic anymore.
It was mechanical. He put it back in his coat pocket. The corridor rang with every step, every gasp. But none of that took the place of Christine. She was gone.
But her voice remained behind, and it was louder than ever. The truth doesn't have to yell. It just has to stop apologizing. Robyn, who had returned home, sat motionless in the corner of her living room. The children were sleeping. The house was still. And as for the show, she wasn't certain that she'd ever act again. She took out an old notebook, one she hadn't used in years. She turned to the middle, found a blank page, and started to write. Day 1, she wrote. Without him. She did not write it as a wife. She wrote it as a woman, waking up from a long, silent dream. Morning dawned in Flagstaff as it always did. Except today, something had come to an end, and something else had begun. Christine faced a plain podium within a small civic hall, wearing plain clothes. No cameras, no producers, no stylists adjusting her collar. Just her and her words. She was asked to give a keynote at a private summit on emotional resilience, a room full of women who had viewed the inside of silence and fought their way out. I was taught that holding the family together was the most holy thing that a woman could do, she said gently. But nobody instructed me on what to do when the family didn't hold me. Nobody in the room flinched. They were hearing the way only survivors hear, quietly, wholly. I thought loyalty was hanging in there. But it's not. Loyalty is not a slow death. It's supposed to be two-way. She hesitated, eyes blurring. I didn't leave Kody because I didn't love him anymore. I left because I fell in love with myself. And that kind of love doesn't require you to shrink just to remain. Later that day, Christine stepped outside to a gathering she didn't anticipate. Mothers, daughters, women carrying signs that stated, "We see you, Christine. Polygamy is not immunity. Truth sets women free." She hadn't asked for a movement, but perhaps that was precisely what she'd forged. Inside the courthouse again, Kody was concluding his last statement, his final opportunity to clarify, justify, or at least, own it. But what he offered was little more than a hint of what once was. I thought leadership was about strength, he said, looking down. But strength without humility is isolation. He took a moment, not sure if he even believed in what he had just said. I see now that control is a solitary form of power. The courtroom was nearly deserted now. Only the clerk, the judge, and Robyn, who sat as far away as ever. She didn't nod. She didn't smile. She just watched. A stranger in the seat where his last defender sat. When the judge asked if Christine would like to make a final comment, she refused. There was nothing left to say. The gavel came down with a heavy clap. But some endings don't require a sound. They require a stillness. Outside, as Christine pushed her way through the crowd, a woman pressed something into her hand. It was a tiny silver key. "For your new home," she whispered. "Wherever that is. May it never trap you in again." Christine smiled. Freedom wasn't clamorous. It didn't dance or yell. It moved quietly, and didn't need permission. Meanwhile, Robyn waited in her vehicle in the parking lot. She hadn't heard from Kody since court day. But something was gnawing at her now, a whisper that wouldn't remain underground. She picked up her phone and typed out a message. It wasn't long, just a few words. "Kody, I'm taking a break. From the show, from us, from pretending." She hit send, and just like that, the last tether snapped. She wasn't angry, she was empty. And sometimes that's what healing sounds like, not a scream, but a soft disconnection. Back at home, Kody sat alone. No kids, no wives, no film crew knocking at the door. Just a living room full of echo. And a music box on the table that hadn't been played in years. He wound it again. Nothing. He wound it harder. Still, nothing. And then, at last, he let go of the key, put the box in a drawer, closed it, and walked away. It didn't play. But maybe it wasn't meant to anymore. Later that evening, Christine was in her new space. Small, quiet, with boxes still piled in corners, and photos not yet put up. But it was hers. Truly slept in the room next door. The windows were open, and the air was redolent with peace. She sat down on the bed, opened her notes app, and typed the title of a new journal. Day 1, Christine, Unfiltered. She grinned at it. She didn't have to tell the world anything more. Because the world had already heard her. And this time, it actually listened.